Alright, I can't be the only one that feels nervous for Henry Cejudo right now. If you've been living under a rock lately, let me catch you up with some things. Henry's next fight is against Song Yadong, and while some might brush it off like, Song's a decent fighter, let me tell you something. The dude is more than decent. Meanwhile, Henry's coming off a 2-fight losing streak. And yeah, those losses were to arguably two of the greatest bantamweights of all time. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, okay? Henry's age. He's 37 years old, and for a bantamweight, that's practically ancient. And sure, you can chalk up his loss to Merab as Merab being that damn good, but let's not ignore the fact that Henry gassed out by the second round. And yeah, I know he was dealing with a groin injury, which affects movement and explosiveness, but even with that, the sign of declines are hard to miss. The truth is, bantamweights rely heavy on speed, agility, and reflexes, things that age doesn't exactly preserve. By 37, even the best start to lose their step. And here's the kicker. After the Merab loss, Henry was openly considering retirement. That's never a good sign for someone trying to climb back into title contentions. Now look at his opponent, Song Yadong. Young, explosive, and steadily improving. That guy is no walk in the park. And with all these factors stacked against Henry, yeah, I'm nervous. This fight feels like it could be a major turning point for both fighters, but for Henry, it might be the start of the end. Because Song Yadong poses a serious threat to Henry Cejudo because of his youth, power, and all-around skill set. At just 27, Song is in his physical prime, bringing knockout power and even explosive combinations that can make even Cejudo's defense look shaky. Now, Song Yadong's power and boxing are a huge problem for Henry Cejudo, and there's plenty of evidence to back it up. Let's start with Song's knockout power. Just look at his fight against Marlon Moraes. One clean uppercut and Marlon was out cold. That kind of one-shot knockout power is kind of rare at bantamweight, and something like Henry hasn't faced much in his career. And at 37, Henry's chin might not be able to hold up as well as it used to, so taking even a couple of those shots can be an absolute nightmare. Then there's Song's sharp boxing fundamentals. His fight with Julio Arce is a great example of how technical he can be. Song used a crispy jab and clean combinations to systematically break Arce down, finishing him with a beautiful right hand. Henry typically loves to pressure his opponents, but if he walks into Song's range, he's going to eat a lot of those jabs and counters, which could make it really hard for him to fight in his rhythm. Let's not forget that Song's ability to counterpunch. In his fight with Ricky Simon, Song timed Ricky's forward pressure perfectly, catching him with a clean counter and eventually finished him. That's exactly the kind of thing that Henry needs to watch out for, because Cejudo has a habit of lunging in with his strikes or his takedown attempts. If Song times it right, Henry can end up walking into a big shot just like how Ricky did. And then there's Song's volume and combinations. Go back and watch his fight with Corey Sandhagen. Even though Song lost, his ability to stay competitive and land heavy combinations against someone as skilled as Sandhagen was impressive. He forced opponents to consistently react, which is tough for someone like Henry who hasn't fought at a high pace in years. Lastly, Song's durability is a problem. Against Marlon Vera, Song took heavy shots but never backed down, staying in the fight and even outstrike Vera to get the win. Henry can land clean, but Song's ability to absorb punishment and keep coming forward could frustrate him, especially if Henry starts to slow down in the later rounds. Now, the grappling between Henry Cejudo and Song Yadong is where things do get interesting. Henry's an Olympic gold medalist, so his wrestling is elite, but he's not the type of guy to hold someone down for an entire round. He's more about using takedowns and mixing things up, like in his rematch with Demetrius Johnson, where he'd get takedowns but didn't really control DJs for long stretches. Anyway, Song has shown that he's tough to keep his opponents down, especially in his fight with Ricky Simon, where he defended takedowns well and scrambled back to his feet quickly. He's strong, explosive, and has definitely improved at dealing with wrestlers. Sure, we've seen him get controlled on the ground by guys like Corey Sandhagen and Peter Yan, but even then, he usually finds a way to get back on his feet. These days, he even started mixing in some grappling of his own, but I don't see him going that route in this fight. I think he's going to focus on keeping it standing and backing Cejudo up. And look, man, I think for Henry, the key is going to be mixing in takedowns to mess with Song's rhythm and keep him guessing. If Henry can get Song thinking about the takedowns, it might slow down his striking and make him hesitant to throw those big shots. But here's the thing, if Song can stuff a couple or make Henry really work for the takedowns, it's going to really wear Henry out fast. Another factor in this fight is Henry Cejudo's ability to check leg kicks. Now, I'm aware that he has improved over time, but it's not a standout part of his game. Early in his career, leg kicks were clear weaknesses, like Demetrius Johnson used them effectively in their first fight to slow him down, and Marlon Moraes also found tons of success targeting his legs in their fight. However, Henry has made adjustments as he evolved, showing better awareness and movement to minimize the damage. For example, in his rematch with Demetrius Johnson, he dealt with leg kicks more effectively by maintaining better distance and using his wrestling to counter. That said, Henry isn't known for consistently checking leg kicks, which leaves him potentially open for Song Yadong. Song throws heavy, damaging leg kicks, and he's good at setting them up within his striking combinations. If Song can land them early and often, it could compromise Henry's mobility, which is crucial for his wrestling and his striking entirely. If Henry doesn't actively address Song's leg kicks, it could be a big problem as the fight goes on. Song has the power and timing to make those kicks a game changer, especially if he forces Henry to second guess his movement or his entries. For someone like Cejudo, who relies on explosiveness and quick footwork, eating too many leg kicks can seriously limit his ability to execute his game plan. Now, don't get me wrong, Henry Cejudo could definitely win this fight, but he's got to fight smart and stick to his strengths. First off, he's got to lean on his wrestling early. He doesn't need to hold Song down for a whole fight, but just mixing in the takedowns will keep Song guessing and making him less confident in throwing those big shots. Even if Song gets back up, forcing him to defend takedowns will slow him down over time. Next, Henry needs to control the range. Song is dangerous in the pocket, so Henry needs to stay on the outside, use his movement, and frustrate Song with his jab and his feint. If he keeps the fight at his pace, it will help him avoid those heavy shots. Targeting Song's body with punches and kicks is another smart move to drain his gas tank and take away some of that explosiveness. Plus, throwing a few leg kicks of his own wouldn't hurt to make it harder for Song to plant and throw power punches. The key for Henry is surviving the early rounds where Song is at his most dangerous. If he can get past the first 2 rounds without taking too much damage, Henry's experience in 5-round fights could give him the edge. He's got to push the pace late in the fight and take over in the championship rounds where Song might start to fade. Most importantly, Henry has to avoid any mistakes. Song is a sharp counter striker, so Henry cannot afford to telegraph takedowns or rush in recklessly. If he can keep things clean, mixing in his striking and wrestling, and making it a gritty fight, Henry has a solid shot at grinding out a decision or maybe even finding a late finish. It's not an easy fight, but it's definitely a winnable fight if Henry plays it smart. And look, man, this is tough. This is a tough fight for Henry because he's never really faced a true power counter striker. Sure, you can argue that Marlon Moraes had some serious power, and yeah, he did, but he didn't have the chin to back it up. Plus, Marlon didn't have the kind of wrestling or grappling ability that Song brings to the table right now. Honestly, I feel like this fight might be a little bit too much for Henry overall, and that's what has me a little nervous about this matchup. Now, that said, I do think Henry has a real chance to get it done, but it's gonna come down to how much he really wants it. He talks a big game, but does he want it as bad as Song does? Either way, I can't wait for this fight. It's gonna be an absolute banger. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like always, guys, I'll see you guys on my next one.